Hi guys, welcome to a Year with Trees podcast. I'm your host Fatima, a huge lover and learner of trees, and this podcast is my love letter to them. I decided to take up this project because I have so many stories about them that I would love to share with others. So come along with me, let's explore the beautiful world of trees. And while you are at it, I hope you fall in love with them as much as I do. So what are we waiting for? Let's go ahead.
Today's tree is a very well known tree in India as its fruit is enjoyed as a food, both ripe and unripe. Yes, if you guessed jackfruit, you're correct. These evergreen trees go by the scientific name of Artocarpus heterophyllus, while in my mother tongue we call it kathal. I have seen jackfruit trees in many places in India. Some were majestic and enormous, while others were only medium in height. But there's a special one that I recall often and feel sad for it because it's not there anymore. Yes, it was cut down and uprooted to construct a building. Let me tell you the story first, and then we'll dig deeper to learn more about this tree. I first came across this tree in January of 2024 in corner of our bare plot of land. And although I've seen many jackfruit trees, for some reason I felt an affinity to this tree almost immediately. Maybe because it was so approachable, so nearby that I could touch its leaves and trunk and look up at its canopy full of beautiful green leaves and branches laden with fruits, small and big. Other jackfruit trees which I had seen were inside someone else's compound or campus. I could not study them the same way, but I inspected this one closely and to my heart's content. Its understory was littered with crunchy dried leaves and small jackfruits too. It was a perfect place to find a moment of calm and shade from harsh sun. I also noticed that the tree was home to some species of black and red ant, possibly arboreal bicolored ant, which builds its nest in dry cavities of tree. Standing and observing nature under the tree felt so wholesome that I didn't want to move away from there but sit around somewhere nearby and watch the nature go by. But it was time for me to go, and I left the place grudgingly. And then, whenever opportunity came to visit the place, I didn't forget to drop by the beautiful tree and stand for some moments under its cool shade until the day when it was no more. When I went to check up on it that day, the corner of the plot stood empty. Only the tree's stump bore any clue of any tree having been there at all. The place was littered with leaves and overrun with confused ants that lost their precious home. I could not help but feel sad for the ants as much as I felt for the tree. I understand that in order to construct over a land, the place must be cleared. But I have seen places where people respect trees in their compound and build structures so as to accommodate trees in their plot instead of cutting them. In 21st century, I'm sure there would be architectural solutions to be inclusive of existing trees. But people as a general rule don't want to bother about trees because cutting them is easier and cost effective. Anyway, there was nothing I could do about it other than lament over it, and I still think about it sometimes. Now it's time to share some interesting information about this tree with you. To begin with, my most favorite part of this tree is its leaves. The leaves of jackfruit trees are oblong or round, smooth and glossy. I particularly love the color of its leaves. It's so appealing, so calming to look at. At first glance, it's dark green, but in the certain shades and moods, there's a hint of blue to it. As an artist and natural lover, I love to be exact about my trees. And I would say the color of leaves is at times cobalt green, and then at other times it's rich emerald green. Anyway, the leaves, apart from being beautiful, is useful as well. In my hometown, the leaves of this tree is used to make a dumpling, a mixture of rice and ragi, and the dal is wrapped in its leaves and then steamed. It's called pitha or dumbo, and it goes well with potato curry, which is called kugni. I love this yummy homely combo. I'm sure there are many other local Indian cuisines that use jackfruit leaves as well. Now let's come to flowers. I have not seen its flowers closely yet, but I would love to check it out sometime. I have read that it bears male and female flowers in a single tree, and both are greenish green colored. The flowers are pollinated by wind, bats, birds, and by insects such as bees, beetles, and ants. And I suppose the ants which I saw in my tree that day maybe acted as its pollinator too. Now let's talk about fruits. Once the flowers are successfully pollinated, the fruit forms, which is the most conspicuous feature of this tree. Heavy, leathery fruit with spikes. I have read that the fruit of this tree is the largest of all tree fruits and sometimes weighing almost 55 kg. In many places in India, the unripe fruit is cooked and savored with rice or puri. The cutting up of fruit releases some sticky stuff that is hard to wash off, so folks generally apply oil before handling it. The ripe fruit is also enjoyed in many places. Its flesh is yellow or orange in color depending on the variety. It has a strong fruity aroma and sweet flavor. I personally don't like aroma of fruits like jackfruit, papayas, etc. But I love its seeds. The seeds are edible too. Large oval shaped seeds that my mom pressure cooks, which one can eat with mango pickle or put in some curry to boil with. It is delicious either way. I love the nutty taste of it. My neighbor auntie makes a sambar with seeds, peanuts, and peas, etc., and this is delicious as well. And of course, like other fruits in India, there must be many ways to prepare different delicacies with it around India or even around the world.
Now let's talk about the bark and wood of jackfruit tree. The bark of jackfruit is reddish brown in color, and the tree's bark and fruit when wounded release white sticky latex. I have observed that jackfruit trees are mostly straight growing trees, and in many of them I have seen cavities or holes, which are nice and cozy enough to house a family of owls. If you ever come across a jackfruit tree with a family of owls, do send me photos of them. Jackfruit is also cultivated for its valuable wood, as it is a popular choice to make furniture since it is termite resistant. It is also used to make musical instruments such as veena. Now let's talk about the habitat of jackfruit tree. Jackfruit is a tropical tree and it is native to western Ghats of India. But these days it is found almost all over the Indian subcontinent and is also naturalized and cultivated in different parts of the world. Maybe it's not that common in colder regions, but I suppose stray ones are always there to be found if one is interested to look for it.
Now let's recap what I have talked about to pick up features that are useful to identify the tree during walks outside. The most prominent feature is its fruit, of course. It's unmistakable. Large greenish or brown spiky fruits that immediately catch the eyes. Its fruiting varies from place to place in India, so I can't pinpoint a specific month to look for it. And if it is not fruiting season, the next best identifier is its round or oblong dark green leaves that sparse in lower branches and, and gets dense higher up in the canopy. And once you have seen it, it is difficult to forget it. That's how interesting the shade of its leaves is. And I suppose that's it. For your reference, I'll add images and a nifty infograph to my blog so you can identify this tree better. Hope this helps. Anyway, that's all for today's episode. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed learning about this charming tree as much as I love describing it. I hope you're able to meet it in person in your next walk in the park or even roadside. See you in the next episode. Hope you enjoyed today's episode about Artocarpus heterophyllus or the jackfruit tree. For this episode, I mostly relied on my own observations and then some facts from good old internet. Do subscribe to the podcast in app of your choice and share this podcast for the sake of tree love. Also, your reviews are very welcome. Thank you all. Stay tuned.